Hello and welcome to Light Your DNA Match List on Fire. Yes, love the enthusiasm. That's right, yes. So if this is your first time joining us, this is the third of four lectures on doing the DNA. And this is the one that you've all been waiting for, really, because this is the most genealogically actionable part of our DNA test results is our DNA match list. But first of all, the required slide. I don't mind if you take pictures. I spend an inordinate amount of time on these slides, so if you want to capture them for yourself, it's fine with me. So, the fire. All fires start with just a spark. It's very small if you think about it, and yet it grows and grows and grows if unchecked, right? So how can you do this in your DNA match list? How can you spark it into something that grows? Thankfully, it starts with something very small. You can actually spark a fire in your DNA match list with just one match. And that one match will gather more matches to it, and the fire will grow and grow and grow until it finds your ancestor. Sound like a plan? Yeah, let's figure out how to do that. So, it really is all about your match list, and it's about the matches that are found on your match list, which of course means that the people that you need to help you answer your question need to have taken a DNA test. Now, we would love for everybody to take a DNA test, and that hasn't happened, but for most of us, we've reached a point in the life of genetic genealogy, now celebrating, of course, our 25th year, where most of us do have this critical mass of DNA matches that can help us answer our questions. In fact, I'll bet for most of you, the answer to your question, your research goal, is actually sitting right now in your DNA match list. You just don't know how to find it. So that's what it's all about today, is for me to teach you the methodology you can use to get into that match list and find the matches you need to help you answer your question. So it does all start with the DNA match list. But before we can jump into the match list, I think we need to take one step back and ask ourselves two questions. What is a DNA match? And are all DNA matches important? So to do that, we're gonna do some fun science. Now, I tell people all the time, you don't have to know or even like science at all to be a successful genetic genealogist, and that is true. But I have this sneaking suspicion that the reason you don't like science is because you never had a good teacher. Yes, right? So I'm here not only to teach you about the joys of genetic genealogy, but I want to convert each of you into science lovers. So if you'll excuse me for just a minute, we're going to do a little bit of fun science to help you understand how your DNA testing company is determining that all of these people are your DNA matches. So first of all, the goal of DNA matching. The goal of DNA matching is to figure out which ancestral couple is shared between you and your matches. That's it. That's the goal, right? You're scrolling through this list, probably a very long list of DNA matches, and that's the only thing you want to know. How am I related to this person? So DNA matching can also tell us something important about each match. It can tell us how far back in that match's family tree we need to go before we're going to run into your common ancestor. So many times people click on a DNA match, they might even have a small tree, and you look through the tree, nothing looks familiar. And you're like, I don't know who that is. It's because you haven't asked how far back in their tree do I need to go. And if you'd asked that question, you knew that you need to do some of their genealogy to push their tree back far enough where you'd actually find your common ancestor. But our DNA match list can tell us that kind of information. But again, how do they determine someone is a match? So let's say this sentence, Roots Tech is the best. Isn't it the best? Are you having fun? Yes. Okay. Let's say this sentence represents this person's DNA signature. Okay? So to match, we're going to compare this person's DNA signature to another person's DNA signature. The way DNA matching works is it starts with a root, so like a seed of a match. Okay? And it identifies this seed of a match. So you can see here my seed is tech is. Okay? Once the system identifies this seed, it's then going to expand the seed on either side until it runs into something that doesn't match up. So if we expand to the left, you'll see that still matches. But if we extend to the right, we don't match. And so that's what the testing companies are doing. They're looking for these seeds of matches, and they're expanding on either side until they run into something that no longer is the same. And then they measure the part that is the same. And that measurement is measured in something we call a centimorgan, which is just a unit of measure for DNA. And that's it. That's how they determine how much DNA you're sharing with the individuals on your match list. My general rule is the more you share, the more you care. So I made a sticker that looks like this, because this is just a very simple, important principle to keep in mind. The more DNA you share, the more centimorgans you share, the closer that relationship, and the easier it's going to be for you to figure out how you're related. Okay? So that wasn't so bad, was it? That was fun science stuff. But why does it matter? Well, it matters because if you think about this matching technology, if we had instead these two people, and they had this matching seed, is that matching seed as strong as our first seed? No. Why? Well, it's shorter, yes, and the words are much more common. How many do you think there is in the average book, like those two words together? Oh, so many, right? And so even though this technically is a match, right? They do share 10 centimorgans at this location. But is that 10 centimorgans as useful or as weighty as the others? It's not. So, the question, are all DNA matches important? The answer is no. You have DNA matches on your match list that represent that is the. You're matching not because you share a recent common ancestor. You're matching because you're both from the same population. So sometimes you'll see matches on your match list that you will never identify your common ancestor with, because you don't have a recent one. You share a population group. Now, those matches are way down at the bottom. They share very few centimorgans. In general, I recommend that you stick with matches who share 20 or more centimorgans with you. Because when you get down here into these 10s, like I just showed you, some of them may be real. Some of them are real. But many of them are just population matches. Okay, so not all matches are equal, and you certainly don't need to look and understand all of your matches. So best matches, again, have a longest segment over 20 centimorgans. But really, your best matches share DNA with a best known match. Who's a best known match? I thought you'd never ask. A best known match is someone you already know your relationship to. It's a match who's a descendant of the ancestor you are trying to research. Okay, so I want you right now to think, I'm sure all of you have come here with some kind of research goal. So think of the ancestor that you want to research. Do you have that person in your mind? I can't hear your heads nodding. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so I want you to think of the next line down, which is your line. Did that person, your ancestor, have any siblings? Okay, a descendant of that sibling is your best known match. That's the person that is the spark that lights your match list on fire. That's what best matches do. They help us find the matches we need in order to research a specific ancestor. Okay, so your first goal, so many of us, we get our DNA matches and we start scrolling through them and we skip all the people at the top, all of our closest matches, because we're like, well, I know who that is. But those are your most important matches, the people you already know your relationship to. They're the ones who can help you gather out of the rest of your match list the people you need to help you answer your question. So this first step is in what I call the plan. I'm not great at naming stuff, guys. My husband named all the kids. Like, it just doesn't come to me. So it's the plan, because that's what it is. Maybe it's the practical side of me, but this is what we call it. We call it the plan. So a best known match is the first step in the plan. I'm going to simplify the plan a little bit, and we are going to talk about simply taking that best known match, using the shared matches tool along with match labeling, and that will lead us to our best mystery matches. Okay, so this is where we're headed. This is our research goal. Who were the parents of Millie, born 1867 in Kentucky, who married Marco Miller? That's our research goal. So the first step in the plan says we need a best known match, someone who is a descendant of Marco and Millie, just like we are, but ideally through a different child than our own ancestor. Okay, so we need to find this person. We need to find this best known match. Now, I say known, you don't have to actually know them, but you have to be able to confidently document them and be pretty clear that they are a descendant of that ancestor. Once you find that best known match, you then are going to gather a network of individuals, and you do that by using the shared matches tool. So the shared matches tool essentially is a filter on your DNA match list. It reaches into the database of your matches and pulls out only people who are sharing DNA with you and your best known match. So if you think about it, all of these people that you've pulled out, these blue dots, because your best known match is related to Marco and Millie, then all of the people you just gathered using the shared matches tool, who are they related to? Yeah, Marco and Millie. So you've just successfully, in one step, pulled out of your thousands of DNA matches the handful that have something to do with the line you want to research. Right? Easy enough. So these individuals then become what I call your best mystery matches. These are the ones that are worth your time, effort, and energy to investigate and figure out who they are. In order to keep track of these people, we want to use a match labeling system. So that's available at Ancestry. It's available at MyHeritage. You can kind of do it on your own using the LEADS method at other companies. But this match labeling method is essential to staying organized and keeping on track. Now, last year at Roots Tech, I gave an entire lecture on this shared matches tool. In the handout for this class, I've linked to my YouTube channel where I explain how to use the shared matches tool with the match labeling on both Ancestry and MyHeritage. So I'm not going to go over that right now. So it's okay if you don't really understand what I'm talking about or how to do it. Look at those resources and go learn how to do it. The principle is you need to keep track of these people, okay? So you do that, but you need to ask yourself, every single time you use the shared matches tool, you ask yourself this question: who did I just gather? I had a best known match, I used shared matches, I have this list of people. Who is on the list? So Dana Leeds calls these three groups his, hers, and theirs. That's who you've just gathered. So let's talk about each of those kinds of individuals. So who did you just gather? First of all, theirs are other descendants of Marco and Millie. This is your first cousin, this is your sibling, right? These are people you know that are descendants of your ancestor, which is great. Those are other best known matches, possibly, but they're not going to help you get past Millie. It's not going to help you find that missing ancestor. Okay, so you've got theirs, but you also have his and hers. You've got Marco's family in there as well. But you know Marco's family. You're not interested in researching him. You want to find just the matches that have to do with Millie. So how do we do that? How do we separate the matches that belong to Marco from the matches that belong to Millie? We call this in the plan splitting your network. You've got this group of people, you need to split out the ones that you don't need. Okay? So we do that using a best known match. So ideally, you know Marco's parents, you know Marco's siblings, and you find a descendant of one of Marco's siblings. That person becomes your best known match for this line. You use the shared matches tool on that person, and you label those matches with a different color. Do you see what I've just created now? I've created a dot pattern that shows me who's related to Marco so that I can ignore those matches right now in my search. I'm not interested in learning about Marco's line. So in the workbook that I have, I help you walk through this by creating these little categories. But what I'm trying to communicate is how essential it is for you to be organized and to write down your steps. Because you can see all of a sudden you're like, wait, another best known match, but where did that person come from? And it's easy to just get confused and lost. So just stay on the path, do one thing at a time, and write down what you're finding. Write down that you use the orange dot to mark Marco's line. Okay? So just keep a good record of your research and help yourself by taking good notes. Which means that anybody who doesn't have an orange dot is what I call a leftover. It's the leftovers that we can be fairly confident map to Millie's line. And do you see how now we've gone through 2 iterations of the shared matches tool, 2 best known matches, and we've ended up with leftovers, a list of best mystery matches. These are the people that are going to help us identify Millie's family. So the next step is to dive into these best known matches, these leftovers, and you ask this question: how are these matches related to each other? Again, so often we get this far even, and we start looking through some posted family trees from these matches, and we don't see anything we recognize. And we're like, I don't know. But if you have a group of matches who have trees that you don't see anything that's familiar, you should be throwing the biggest party. You don't know what Millie's name is, so you're not going to recognize it when you see it. Right? This is like the golden moment in genetic genealogy. When you can successfully find a group of leftovers, your next step is to figure out how are these people related to each other? Who is their common ancestor? If you can identify their common ancestor with each other, it means that that couple is somehow related to you. And you've just found a really solid lead on Millie's family. Now, depending on how these matches match you and the genealogy and all of that, Millie could be a descendant of this couple. You may have just found her parents or grandparents, again, depending on how all the DNA works out. Or it's possible that Millie's not a descendant of this couple, but a descendant of one of the ancestors of this couple. Okay, so to figure this out, you have to ask, what is my generation of connection? How far back in these family trees of these matches do I need to go in order to figure out our relationship? So we'll talk about that a little more. But is this fairly clear? Do we have any clarifying questions before we keep going? Just about this general concept. Yes? Okay, so she's basically asking, what if I can't find a best known match, right? Well, good thing I prepared for that. This was the next slide. But lecture 4, which is tomorrow, is going to cover that. So today we're talking as if it's a really good world and you have a best known match, which many of us really do. You just have to kind of find them. But a lot of times you won't. And then what do? You come to my class at 8. Okay? So that's what we're doing at 8. Any other clarifying questions, though, really quick that was a good one. Okay, so once you've gathered these matches together, your leftovers, there are going to be 3 different kinds of matches within that group. And these are going to be matches that you'll want to date, go steady with, or actually marry. Okay? So, dating matches. These are matches that have no tree. Right? Do you guys have these matches? I know. In fact, I was in line for lunch and I was just talking with a gentleman about what to do when we don't have these. And we actually taught a class in January from Your DNA Guide, the Academy, about how to do this, how to find living relatives. And it's a whole thing. I mean, we taught a 2-day workshop on it, so I'm not going to explain it right this second. But it's possible you can do it for many people, but it's hard. So the next best thing to do is to contact them. We'll talk about that in a second. Going steady matches are matches with trees that you don't know your relationship to. Again, these are the matches that are most valuable because they've already told you a little bit about who they are, so you can work with what they've given you to expand your knowledge of their family. And lastly, of course, marry are those that you actually figure out your relationship to and you can add them to your tree. Okay, so let's start first with dating. So these are, again, matches with no tree. And your choice is to build their tree, again, by looking them up on social media, finding them on people finding websites, and figuring out who their parents were and their grandparents were. It's a whole deal. Or you can contact them. So contacting them could provide to be useful. But what I want you to do is think about that first contact like a first date. Now, maybe it's been a minute since some of us have been on a first date. It'll be 25 years this year that I've been married. So it's been a minute, but I have teenagers, and they do date, my teenagers. Isn't that great? Why have teenagers stopped dating? They have. Anyway, mine do occasionally date. And so I want you to think about reaching out to this match as if it was a first date. What's the goal of a first date? To get a second date, right? That's your whole goal, you guys. You just want them to write back. That's it. Okay? Now, of course, we all want that golden match who's going to write back with a full family tree and, I've already figured out how we're connected. Let me show you. Yeah, no. It is not going to happen. Okay, so your goal, your entire goal, is just to get them to write back. Okay, so how do we do that successfully? Well, there are 4 parts, I think, to your contacting matches letter. Number 1 is their username or their name. Okay, just everybody likes the sound of their own name. Put it at the top. Plus, lots of people administer multiple DNA kits. And if you write to them and say, hey, I'm your DNA match, they actually have no idea who you're talking about. Okay, so start with their name or username. Part 2, keep it short. Ask questions that they know. You're a genealogist. You need the name of one dead relative of theirs. That's it. And then you can build their tree. So think of that in your mind. Yeah, it'd be nice to know if they had an ancestor with the surname of McMillan in Ohio in 1742. Are they going to know that? No. If they did, they'd have a tree, guys. Okay? They don't know that. What do they know? They might know the names of their grandparents. If you had the names of their grandparents, could you build their tree to 1747 in Ohio? Yes. Yes. No maybes, come on. Yes, you're a genealogist. Okay? So keep in mind your goal. Your goal is just to get them to write back, so ask them questions they know the answer to. Never, under any circumstances, should you mention a centimorgan. Never. You will scare them away. Seriously. Don't mention it. Keep it simple. You want the second date. You want the second date. Number 3, even if you don't know, please write back to my email address. You should include this in every message. First, it's an easy out. Most people that actually receive your message, because let's be honest, most of your people are not going to see your message. They don't log in, and when they do, they don't know that that little dingy bell at the top with a number on it means they should click it. They are not getting your messages. But if they miraculously do get your message, again, your goal is to get them to write back. Even if you've just asked about their grandparents and they're like, I only know their first names, which surprisingly, a lot of people only know their grandparents by like Pop-Pop and Mama. So they might be embarrassed. You're a genealogist, for heaven's sakes. They think you're awesome. So again, give them an easy out. Just say, hey, it's cool. Even if you don't know, I just want to make sure my message is getting to you. Would you just write back and let me know? I've had a lot of people write back and say, yeah, I got your message. I don't really have time for this right now. Okay. But I got it back. And if I put my email address, I now have their email address, which means I can email them directly, and it gives me another piece of information with which to stalk them online and build their tree for them, which is the other option, right? Okay, but just make it easy for them. Make it easy for them to give you the information that you need. And lastly, of course, you'll want to sign it, right, with your name. And I think it's just a nice touch to add a little something extra. Like, I love to climb trees, do you? Just, it gives you some personality, you know? It makes you a little more three-dimensional. I don't know. I like to throw stuff in. Those are the tips. So, for your mystery matches, you are going to date those with no trees, meaning you're going to contact them and reach out to them. Next, your go steady matches. These are matches with trees, but you can't see your relationship. So this is the bulk of genetic genealogy right here, is investigating these kinds of matches. So you're going to choose a match that has a tree, a go steady match. You're going to use the total amount of centimorgans to guesstimate at your relationship. And yes, that is a very scientific term. We are going to guesstimate, and then you're going to find your generation of connection. So let's start with a match that has a tree, like this guy, DC. He's sharing 238 centimorgans. I know, right? We're excited about that. Okay, we're going to use that total amount of centimorgans to guesstimate at our relationship. So here's the thing about DNA and centimorgans. We think of DNA as being like this exact science that tells us exactly how we're connected to people, but it really doesn't. That total amount of shared DNA could have one of many possible relationships to you. So if you use a tool like they have at the Shared Centimorgan Project, or if you're at Ancestry or MyHeritage, you can just click on that total amount of shared DNA and get more information. But essentially, they're going to give you a list of possible relationships. They're going to say, it could be any of these. And you have to choose the one that you think is best just to start with. You have to make a hypothesis. You have to guesstimate so that you're not stuck. So it doesn't matter terribly, really, which one you choose to start with. You're going to choose a relationship, and then you're going to move forward with investigating it. We'll talk a little bit deeper about this tomorrow at 8. Remember how you're coming? Tomorrow at 8. But for now, it really is fine to just take whatever seems easiest to start with. So let's start with second cousins. So if you're second cousins with this person, when is your generation of connection? Second cousins share great grandparents. Okay, so if this person is your second cousin, then theoretically, your shared ancestral couple is one of these 4. So do you see how I've just narrowed it down for you? You've got someone's tree, You guesstimate at your generation of connection, and now you know how much of their genealogy you need to do in order to get back to that generation of connection where you can hope to see that shared ancestral couple. So with DC, with our luck, of course, it's the line that's not built out, of course. So what do? You build it out. You're a genealogist, for heaven's sakes. You've got this. Just because they couldn't figure it out doesn't mean that you can't. Okay? So you would begin to build out this person's tree to make sure you could see that second cousin couple. Okay? So you want to write all of this down. I don't know how many times I've talked to people who, sometimes we do coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching, and we'll start to look at a match, and they'll be like, oh, that's so interesting. Oh, wait. No, I did that. Yep, I looked at that match. Oh, I even built their tree. Oh, yeah, it's over here. But you totally forgotten about it. So keep track of what you're doing. Don't duplicate your work. So log it. So I like to use GoodNotes. And of course, I already mentioned the workbook. But GoodNotes is essentially just like Evernote or other note-taking apps. So if you like to do things digitally, then this is a good method. So what I do is I have a separate notebook for every research goal. Okay, so every research goal, not surname line, no. Every research goal gets a notebook, and every research goal gets their own research log. Then for every best mystery match, I give them their own little section. It's called a quick note. And I take screenshots of their shared match lists. I take screenshots of their family trees. I take screenshots of that list of possible relationships, and I put them all into this quick note. So then I have all the research about each individual match that I've looked into in one place. And so later when I pick up the research, I can come back here and say, okay, I've already investigated these matches. It's time to move on to the next one on my list. Okay? So in the workbook, it is just if you buy the digital version, it's just a PDF. That's the other thing I like about GoodNotes and other note-taking apps like this. You can just import PDFs. If you download the handout from this class today, you can import it into GoodNotes. You can take all your notes, write on it, and have these links in these notes forever, if you want. Okay? So in the workbook, though, like there are specific pages that like help you write stuff out. But if you put it into GoodNotes, you can just digitally write on it right there. It just makes it really easy to kind of keep track of everything. But you just do that for every best mystery match in your network, over and over and over again. You look into their trees, you determine their generation of connection, you build their tree back to that generation of connection, you put that match down, you pick up another one, do the same thing. And what you'll find almost every time is that by match 3, 4, 5, you start to identify some common elements between your matches. They seem to be all from Polk County, or they seem to all have the same naming patterns, or you see that shared ancestral couple. And that's like the most amazing and magical moment in genetic genealogy, when you make that connection between those leftover matches. Okay? So it is a lot of genealogy, you guys. I'm so glad you like genealogy, because it's a lot. You do a lot of other people's genealogy. It's actually kind of fun, especially if you've been doing genealogy for a long time and like every line is a brick wall. You start doing the research for one of your DNA matches who hasn't really tried, and all of a sudden it's like bam, 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 bam. It's so easy. It's fun, again. So do it just for fun, because literally they just haven't tried, because they don't know and they're not interested, but it's actually a lot of times really easy to build their trees. You just find records left and right, and it feels really nice. So you're doing a lot of genealogy for other people, other DNA matches. Okay? So that's what you do with all of those mystery matches. Of course, once you've found their connection to each other, and you can then perhaps see how you're related. So tomorrow in the lecture, we'll talk about using the What Are the Odds tool, which is a way for you to help you figure out how you're connected to these other matches in your match list. But that's when you marry them. And so marriage talks this is what I do first. The first step of marriage, maybe we'll call this the prenup. Let's call this the prenup. This is where you take all of those matches that you've just determined how they're related to each other and you draw them out on a chart. You can do this on a piece of paper if you want to. I like to use Lucid Chart. That's what this is from, because you can drag and drop things. And again, I like to take, you can download these images. I can put them into my Good Notes, which I like to do. So if you're a digital person, using Lucid Chart is really helpful. But I always draw out the tree before I put it into what are the odds. And now there's this new tool called Banyan DNA. They have a booth here. So Wattos from DNA Painter, they also have a booth here at the expo hall. Both tools are great, have a little bit different purposes. We're not going to go into that right now. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. But this is the next step in marriage, is to put your information into one of these tools that can help you really determine how you're connected to this group of DNA matches that you've just found. So, this is it. This is what you do with your mystery matches. You either date them, you go steady, or you get married. Do you guys want to try it? Great. Okay, I need all of my DNA matches to come up on stage. So if I gave you a little piece of paper, I need you to bring that paper forward. Be careful of the stairs. They want you to kind of gather, if you can, on this side. Maybe we can make a little semicircle. There's going to be several of you here at first, so come on up. Lucid Chart, like Lucid. Lucid, yeah. So come on all the way over here, maybe make a little semicircle. So we got to get all those people up here still. Perfect. Great. Good. I mean, we can come over here a little bit because some of these people are going to be sitting down real quick. It's fine. Okay. All right. So here's our research goal. So this is actually from Sue, who's in our study group. Her research goal is, who were the parents of Roxana Howard? Roxana was born in Canada around 1842, had a father named John, and so Roxana is Sue's 2 times great-grandmother. Okay, so if we want to research Roxana, what's our first step from the plan? Find your best known match, right? So what we've done is I've found best known matches, people who are descendants of Roxana and her husband. We're going to call her Roxy. Roxy and her husband. And using the shared matches tool and match labeling, we have found a network of matches. Okay, so because we used a best known match, we know that all of these people are somehow related to Roxy and her husband. Yes? All right, so again, that means we've got his, hers, and theirs. Now, are the theirs going to help us? No, right? They might help us gather more matches later, but right now, we don't need the theirs. So remember, this is Sue's 2 times great-grandparent. So anyone who's a descendant of them would be her 3rd cousins or closer. Okay, so on average, a 3rd cousin shares about 75 centimorgans. But we want to be really sure that we're not missing anybody that we want to keep. So we're just going to dismiss from the stage anyone sharing 175 centimorgans or more. Thank you for coming. You are a theirs. Great, yes. Thank you. Round of applause for our 2 theirs descendants. Fabulous. Okay, so we don't need them, right? But now who do we have left? We have people who are his and hers, right? We don't need Roxy's husband's matches, right? Because we're focused on Roxy. How do we get rid of Roxy's husband's matches? Yes, find a descendant of Roxy's husband's brother or sister, and that person is your best known match, right? Okay, everybody flip your bright yellow over, and let's look at your dots. Show the audience your dot patterns just on that bright yellow sheet, yeah. Okay, so Roxy's matches are all pink. Roxy's husband matches have been dotted with orange. If you have orange, you may sit down. Yay, thank you. Yes, please clap for our volunteers. Perfect. Okay, so these are our leftovers. Do they look leftover? They look great. They look fresh. Okay, these are our leftovers, right? So his, hers, and theirs, we now have our leftovers. So now the question becomes, how are these matches related to each other? What is their relationship? How do we figure out how they're related to each other? What do we need to do? Do genealogy. Yes, we need to dig into their trees, right? But before we know how far we need to dig into their trees, we need to find their generation of connection, right? How far back in their trees do we even need to go to find our relationship, right? So we need to go our generation of connection. So what I need you to do is everybody just turn yourself over so you're now at the regular yellow. Okay, now on the back of your card, you'll see a number. Nope, you won't. Yeah, up at the bottom. Put yourselves in order with 1 right here and 8 down there. So look for the number on the back. It's at the bottom corner, right here. Bottom corner, so flip it over. Bottom corner, yep. Okay, all right, now hold up your cards. What's their relationship to us? Maybe see if you can scoot more that way. The camera likes everybody on this side of the podium. If we can we scoot all the way this way? All the way next to him. Scooting, perfect, yes. Okay, what is our likely genetic relationship? Fourth cousins, great, which is great, right? We're looking for a 3 times great-grandparent. Roxy's parents would be our 3 times greats. Fourth cousins would be descendants of this couple. This is exactly the kind of match that we want. Okay, so actually, I just sort of gave away that answer. Who is our connecting ancestor? So now flip to the next color. So it's the orange, and look on the back and see what number you are, and put yourselves in order. So again, 1 over here, and all the way down here is the 8. So what number is yours on the back? You should be up here somewhere. 3. So who is our connecting ancestral couple with these people? Our great-great-great-grandparents. Yes? Okay, fantastic. So we know our generation of connection. We can now build out these trees to find that generation of connection. So here's that example from DNA Painter where you can put in that number of centimorgans. It gives you these possible relationships so you can figure out how you're connected. And there we go. Okay, so one of these matches is this match that Sue found. His name is CP. CP's test is administered by Audrey. Now, here's the fantastic thing about Audrey. Audrey is not directly related to CP. She actually found him on her match list a while ago. She reached out to him and found he wasn't actually that interested in learning any of this stuff. And so she asked him if she could administer his kit. So he shared his DNA into her account and made her the kit manager, which you can do at Ancestry. So then she had control over his kit and could communicate with people in his behalf. So Audrey's a go-getter, you guys, you'll see. Okay, so when Audrey started doing this, she started gathering all kinds of people who were related to this family. She did the genealogy, and she figured out how most of these people are related to each other. So flip your next card. Let's see what is your relationship to each other, and put yourself in order. It takes a lot of work, you guys. There's a lot of sifting and mixing. There's a lot of interchanging information that has to happen in order to be successful. All right, can you guys read that? Who are they? They are descendants of 4 sisters. Isn't that incredible? Audrey did so much work. So by the time Sue found this family, Audrey had already done all of this. And Sue's question is, well, am I a descendant of one of these 4 sisters? Is Roxy a descendant of one of these 4 sisters? So that was the big question. The other thing that Audrey did that was so amazing is a do genealogy step we don't often think of. So flip, and let's see what else she did that was so fantastic. Yep, put yourself in order. Sorry, it's going to be this way the whole time. Yeah, don't fall off the back of the stage, though, please. I think you're first, probably. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I had to cross it out. You're here, 1. It's hard to organize, guys. Okay, what should you do with your matches? Audrey started a Facebook page. She started a Facebook page for all the descendants of these 4 sisters, and they began to talk to each other. They began to share information, share resources, share things they tried, things they hadn't tried. It was an incredible collaboration. Pretty soon after Sue joined this group, Marilyn, in their group, had this incredible document discovery. Now, Marilyn is only kind of not even really that related to this group. She was just like this super exuberant researcher who happened to live in the same area of Canada where this family lived. And Marilyn discovered a fantastic record. What record did she find? Rearrange yourselves. What? She found a probate record. Thank you, matches. You may dip your cards and sit down. Thank you. Okay, do you see how much work that took? That's what you have to do with all of those mystery matches. You have to work their family trees. You have to work each individual line. You have to keep looking for connections between them. But when it pays off big. So this probate record that Marilyn found was from Ontario, Canada in 1858. And it had beautiful handwriting, actually, easy to read. And believe it or not, the granddaughter Roxy was listed in the probate. An incredible find. She's like the only granddaughter listed. She must have been the favorite. But just like that, Sue had an answer. And this just happened, guys, like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, she emailed me. I was like, I'm putting that in the presentation. That's an incredible example of how reaching out to your DNA matches, the collaboration that takes place, can go so far to help you solve brick walls. Okay, so don't forget the gathering part. So this is what Sue said. She said, this is the second mystery I've been able to solve because I reached out to other matches and we were able to fill in each other's blanks. I've learned you can't do this alone. So don't be afraid to reach out. You never know what you'll learn. Okay, so if you haven't yet started dating your DNA matches, it's time. So the plan. We have worked through the basic, most important parts of the plan today. It starts with that best known match. Use the shared matches tool and match labeling to identify your network. If you need to, you split that network and you pull out of it the people that don't matter. They're not the ones you need to help you answer your question. And then you move on and you handle those leftovers, those best mystery matches. You get into each one and find their generation of connection. You build out their family tree if you need to. And you determine how are these matches related to each other. Once you've determined that, you can then figure out how you're related to them. Okay? So again, what we've done so far is we had our lecture 1 yesterday. This morning we talked ethnicity results. If you missed that, you can watch it on the Roots Tech website. And then tomorrow morning at 8, we are going to go into a solid case study. So beginning to end, following the plan, understanding the entire process, and specifically what to do when you don't have those known matches. Okay, and then of course, because I have so much I want to tell you. We're doing a free webinar next week just through your DNA Guide. And so you can watch that on the 7th at 2 p.m. But you do need to register so I can send you the link. And so I have this, first there's feedback, and then I have the QR code so you can sign up if you want. So it's really, really helpful for Roots Tech if you fill out their feedback forms. It helps them know what topics you like and what presenters you like. So if you just click on Take Survey from this class, then you can fill this out. And just so you know, it's like, I think it's 553 is how you fill it out. I said 555 last time, and somebody was like, no, the last question is like, if you put 5, it was too hard for you. So I hope that's not the case. But if it was, you guys, if you feel like you're like, that was too much, okay? It's okay. It was a lot. Learning this methodology is hard. It takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of practice. So if there's one thing that you learned and are taking away, I want you just to write that one thing down and be like, sweet, I learned that one thing. And the next time you come, you'll learn one more thing. You don't have to know everything or all of it right now. You really don't. You can make so much progress with one small step. So don't feel overwhelmed. Ask a lot of questions. There's a lot of really capable people in this room. You'll be sitting with them in other classes. You'll see them in the hall. Of course, we've got our booth. You can come ask questions. Don't be afraid. That's how we learn. Just ask lots of questions. Speaking of which, we do have 8 minutes for questions. And by the way, if you don't want to stay for questions, you feel like it's kind of rude if you stand up, it's fine. Just go. But if you have questions, there's a microphone here. Can you come stand at the microphone? And there's a microphone over there as well.
What is your booth name?
Your DNA Guide, and it's booth 301. So if you go in the doors at the expo hall, turn to the left, and you'll see us right there. We're pink. It's your DNA Guide pink, actually. When my daughter and I go shopping, she'll be like, oh my gosh, Mom, that's your DNA Guide pink. You'll have to buy it. So, yeah, I know. I'm wearing your DNA Guide orange today, which I don't generally do, but I mean, how could you not get this dress? So true. Yeah, thank you. Yes, question.
I have a friend who is in his late 40s. He's adopted, and his older children bought him a DNA test, and he found both his biological parents, but his biological father is also adopted. He's in his 70s and would like to figure out who his biological father was.
Yes.
But his biological father is unwilling to share his access to his DNA account with me. Mm-hmm. How hard will that be? I'm trying to figure out a strategy just use my friends.
You totally can just use your friends. It would be way easier if you had his, but you don't, which is fine. So again, it's the whole principle of using those known matches. So the first thing you need to do is get rid of his maternal line. Do you have a first cousin or somebody on that maternal side that you could test?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, right, so you shared matches with them. They get all pink dots. They're all maternal, just lump them all together. It doesn't matter who they are, okay? So next you're turning to the paternal side, okay? So then do you have a known match for the mother? Like, does he know his mother? The gentleman.
The young friend.
No,
the older man.
Yeah.
No, he does not.
Okay, that's fine. So then you'll have this big group of leftovers. And essentially, so I teach this in the book. It's called bottoms up, is what I call the strategy. But essentially, you just take a match, and you start with them, and you use the shared matches tool on them, and you create a group. And then everybody left over is in a different group, right? And then you start working with the matches within each individual group, looking for their common ancestor with each other. Okay?
Yeah,
so it's doable. Bottoms up, that's what I call it. Yes?
Yeah, you were talking about for best common ancestors that you should go with a full sibling and shared matches there. What if they did not have a sibling that lived to adulthood, which one of my ancestors did not?
Right, so that's the no best known match situation.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that tomorrow, but in general, you can do a couple of things. One, you can go a generation back.
Okay.
Or you can come a generation forward, whatever seems easier.
They did have half siblings.
Oh,
but
halves are great.
Oh,
as long as they share the half that you, Well, it doesn't, you can do it either way. Half
Okay.
siblings are actually amazing
Half
because
siblings do
you
help.
don't have to worry about splitting because everyone you get will only be related to that one person. It's actually way easier.
That makes sense. Thank
Lucky you.
That's good.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes, okay, there's someone coming. We will wait.
Hi, so I'm looking for a male line, and anyway, would it be better to do a DNA test from my brother who's male to go through the mail to find that, or does it matter?
So it doesn't matter most of the time. So if you're doing, like, looking for a recent ancestor, what ancestor are you looking for? How far back?
1849,
Okay, so is this like a 2 times great?
yeah.
Okay, so autosomal DNA is your first choice, really, most of the time for any ancestor you're looking for who is a 3 times great or closer. So you, your brother, cousins, anybody and everybody will help you. However, if you're looking for an ancestor beyond that, or if the ancestor you're looking for is a man, Y-DNA can be very helpful. But for Y-DNA to work, you have to have a direct male descendant of the line you're researching.
So it'd be my brother, my dad, then
Right,
my
because-
grandmother and her dad. Would that be a problem?
No. So the person who's tested should have the same surname as the person you're researching.
Okay,
That's how you can be sure you followed the right Y-DNA line. It has to be from the ancestor you want to research, his son's son, son, son.
helpful, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Yes, she's coming. She's running to the microphone.
So I am looking for my, let's see, it's my grandmother's grandfather's parents. Anyway, so when I go back on the line, they had 5 children. Only one of those children had children, which is my great-grandmother. Is any of this testing going to be helpful?
Yeah, so you're in a similar situation. You're just not going to have all the right best known matches, and that's fine. You can either use, so what we'll talk about tomorrow is the kind of elimination method to essentially label everybody else in your match list, and so your leftovers are the ones that you want. Or you can use what I was talking about as bottoms up, where it's just you have this group of matches, and you kind of just pick one, and you group, and then you pick another one, and you group, which is obviously harder and more complicated, but it will still work.
Okay. So it's not a waste of time to do a DNA
No,
test?
not
then?
at all. Never.
So,
Oh, yes, please.
so I've been looking for my great-grandfather, just first great-grandfather, for 50 years. I've been doing this research since I was 14 with my mom, and we've done a lot. Every other line we've, hit little bumps and gotten over them, but this one, we can't. So we've done a DNA with my dad, and he is the son of the son of the son. Okay?
Great.
However, it didn't match. It got back to a couple in Georgia, maybe in the 1840s, but this would be anywhere from 2 to 4 generations between my great-grandfather and them. We still cannot make a match.
Okay.
Any suggestions?
The strategy that you need, I call ask the wife. Okay, so you've got here and you've got up here, but you're struggling in here. Okay?
Right.
So in your DNA match list are networks for every ancestral couple in your family tree. So what you need to do is you've got like the descendant of that high up couple, right? But they got married. There should be another network, a missing DNA network that will tell you the name of the spouse of that line. Does that make sense? So like if you're like, this is another one people think, well, I don't know which son I'm a descendant of. Well, you ask the wife. They all had different wives, which means that wife's DNA is also a part of your DNA match list. You just haven't found it yet. So by grouping your matches like I just taught you, you should see a network of DNA matches that all relate to each other, but you don't know how they relate to you. That group married into this other line. And I'm done. Dang it. Okay. Guys, I'm supposed to watch the clock so it makes like a clean ending to the recording because they literally just cut me off. And I'm like, done now, done. Thank you.